Hey everybody, Ryan Dorn here from 360 Ad Sales Training and Strategy, and on behalf of my friends over at Schwecke Media, thanks so much for checking out this booster training video. Today I want to share with you 10 traits or characteristics or habits, if you will, that I've observed of top performing advertising salespeople from literally markets around the globe. Consumer markets, B2B markets, markets or industries where they're only allowed to sell digital. You know, I'm really blessed to be busy and have an opportunity to observe and work with the best reps in the world and then also some of the worst. And so, as you've heard me say before, we're always looking for repeatable patterns of success. And what does that really mean other than the obvious? Very often, we don't really know what makes us successful, unfortunately. Instead, we tend to rely on random habits of success. And because we can't track it, then we can't repeat it. Well, over the course of several years of developing my ad sales program, writing my book, Selling Backwards, I really began to make note and to write down what are some of the habits that I see on a daily basis from superstar ad sales people. And these are the 10 that I'm going to share with you today. All right, habit or trait number 1. Superstar ad sales reps are always prospecting. Always prospecting. So what does that really mean? Well, those of you that know me or read my book, you'll know about the Big 50 prospecting plan. Now, what I've really noticed is that most superstar sales reps know their numbers. They have a number of prospects that they're going to work in an effort to close a certain amount of business. It's not random. So let me give you my example and the example that I teach. What I typically do is I'm going to work 50 brand new prospects in any given 30-day, 45-day period. Now, what do I define as a good prospect? Hey, I'm looking for people that are already active in the marketplace. I'm looking for new business owners. I'm looking for those that have a marketing director. The other piece is I'm really looking for folks that are always doing something, expanding offices, doing promotions, because typically those people need to advertise or truly want to advertise. All right, so where does 50 come from? I work 50 in an effort to get 10 really good meetings. From those 10 really good meetings, I usually write somewhere between 8 and 9 proposals out of those 10 meetings. Now, why don't I write 10 proposals? Quite honestly, during my sales call, I'll determine that some people actually don't need a proposal. So maybe 8 proposals. Out of those 8 proposals, I try to close between 3 and 4 deals. So I work 50 in an effort to get to 10 meetings. From those 10 meetings, I try to write about 8 proposals. From those 8 proposals, I try to close 3 or 4 deals. So I'm always prospecting. I'm always working that as a part of my program. Now, a lot of you prospect randomly. Typically, you'll look through a competitor's magazine, or you'll hear about a competitor on a website, or you'll see it someplace on television or whatever it is. For me, I'm a lot more deliberate than that. I'm always prospecting, and I like to say I'm prospecting with a purpose. Now remember, the key to this, trait number 1, is knowing how many prospects you need to have in your bucket. See, a lot of you might work, say, a couple a day. You might work a couple a week. You really don't know how many prospects you need to have in an effort to make goals. So that might be one of the first things for you to check out. So that's trait number 1, and that is always be prospecting. All right, now let's take a look at trait number 2 of superstar sales reps. You need to work as hard to keep the business as you did to get it in the first place. Again, that's work as hard to keep the business as you did to get it in the first place. You know, when I observe superstar sales reps, I notice that there's a detailed attention to making sure they retain their really good customers. And the reason that that's so important is because very rarely do I work with a media company where retention is a huge focus. Typically, acquisition is a focus, but retention is not a focus. So let me ask you this. What are you doing on a weekly, monthly, quarterly, or yearly basis to retain customers? I was recently working with a publisher who said, listen, my retention process is very, very simple. I'm going to deliver for that customer. And I said, okay, what do you mean you're going to deliver? But Ryan, I can only promise him two things. I'm going to run the ad and I'm going to send him a bill. You know, I understand where this publisher's head is at, but that's very, very short-sighted because people need a lot more love than that to stick around. Advertisers need to feel a lot more love than that if you really want them to stick around. So again, I ask you, what do you do in a non-sales way to take care of somebody on a weekly, monthly, quarterly, and yearly basis? Is it holiday cards? I mean, is that the extent of your retention program? So here's some things that I've observed that worked very, very well. Share business articles on a monthly basis via email, no strings attached. Invite your advertisers to webinars or lunch and learns to learn about marketing or new products, new features, and things like that in a non-sales, no strings attached kind of way. Anything you can do to keep your brand in front of your advertisers, whether it's little tchotchkes, some of you might call it swag, pens, stress balls, calendars, rubber calculators, all those kind of things that you can do to keep your brand in front of those advertisers. Even more than that, I really noticed that superstar sales reps have a lot of contacts. If I need a website, they know who I should call. If I need my house painted, they know who I should call. If I need my website analytics evaluated, they know who I should call. So they're always looking for ways to make sure that their advertisers feel the love and are always, always being retained. So superstar habit or trait number 2, work as hard to keep a customer as you do to get a customer. All right, now on to superstar habit or trait number 3. What I've observed is that superstar salespeople, they always pitch the decision maker, but if they can't, then they equip the liaison to the fullest. Again, superstar habit number 3, they will always pitch the decision maker, but if they can't, they're always going to equip the liaison, which might be the marketing director or another partner in the business, to the fullest. So let's talk about this and dig into this topic just a little bit on habit number 3 or trait number 3. I wish that I could say that every time that I met with a potential advertiser, I was meeting with the decision maker. As a matter of fact, there's thousands of sales training programs out there that would say this: never ever meet with anybody but the decision maker. In the media ad sales space, typically, it just doesn't happen. Now, some of you that might be working in some smaller local or regional markets, you might actually have the opportunity to meet with the owner of the business, and that's awesome. What I have found, even in some of the larger markets that I serve for city and regional magazines, and even some of the national B2B magazines that I work with, we just don't have the opportunity to meet with the CIO or the CFO or the CEO. We're usually working with a marketing director. And so because that happens 95% of the time, I need to be prepared for that. And if you want to be number one in your market, in your company, in your industry, you have to understand how to equip the marketing director to take your information to the next level. Now, some of you might say, well, Ryan, why don't you just ask? Why don't you ask to meet with the decision maker? Guys, I've tried hundreds of times, and typically the answer is just provide me the information and I'll take it from here. All right, so how do we equip the liaison? It's actually pretty easy. I'll say, listen, if you love this idea as much as I do, Mr. or Mrs. Marketing Director, what can I give to you to provide to your boss to get a signature on the dotted line? Do you need me to create a PowerPoint for you? Do you need one-sheets like I've shown you today? Do you need something else? How about an Excel spreadsheet that lists out all the facts and figures? What will your boss most respond to? See, one of the biggest problems with media kits today is that media kits were designed by a publisher or a sales manager for a broad audience. Yet, very often, we don't know who's going to be reading it specifically. I'm looking for specifics. What does your boss need in an effort for us to close this deal? Some of the answers that I get are crazy. Sometimes it's cash in an envelope. No, I'm just kidding. Usually it's a presentation would be nice. Sometimes they need more visuals. Sometimes the boss is very analytical driven, so they need a lot more stats and figures. So I always want to ask, what do you need to take this idea to the next level so we can get a signature on the dotted line? Now, if you're dealing with a committee or if you're dealing with an association, typically you're going to need some type of presentation that they can print out and something that can be presented by a marketing director or perhaps you yourself. One of the things I love, and I see superstar sales reps doing this all the time, videos. Use videos to tell your story, because then a marketing director can take that video. They know you're not going to show up and run your mouth like most salespeople do, and the video has a beginning, a middle, and an end. So habit number 3, I think, is so unbelievably important. If you can't meet with a decision maker, make sure you equip the liaison. All right, let's move on to superstar sales rep trait number 4. Trait number 4 is understand advertisers buy when they're ready to buy, not when you need to sell. Again, superstar trait number 4, understand that advertisers buy when they are ready to buy, not when you need to sell. Now, why is this so important? It's important because as a salesperson, your timing is usually very, very bad. Meaning this, most of the time, salespeople will wait till a week before a deadline, then you'll burn the phones up, which puts you under undue stress. It also puts your advertiser under the gun as well. And most people don't like that. I mean, ask yourself, do you like it when someone puts the screws to you? Sort of like when you go to buy a new or used car, and that salesperson says, all right, buddy, what do you need the payment to be? Sign right here and I'll get it done. Do you like that? If you do, you're probably weird like me. I enjoy that process. Most people don't like being put in a pressure cooker. Now, another example I think it's important for you to understand is themes. See, some of you in the magazine business, you sell based on editorial themes. So because of that, what it does is if an advertiser doesn't match that theme, they're really not going to buy. They're going to buy when they feel the theme matches them or they are ready to buy. So how do we fix this? First of all, number 1 sales reps typically plan 3 to 6 months in advance. The other piece is they're a lot more creative than most other sales reps in the office. So they're always thinking of new and exciting things. That doesn't necessarily matter if it matches the media, as long as it's a nice, creative idea that matches the audience of your media. The other piece is undue pressure is not good. Putting people in a pressure cooker under the gun typically doesn't work out. And that's why I try to be 4 or 5 months out in advance. Now, if you think for even 1 second, Ryan, my advertisers can barely make a decision about tomorrow, much less 3 months from now. That's because you and other media sales reps just like you have trained them to be a part of this pressure cooker environment. Instead, my approach is very different. Hey, Mr. Advertiser, listen, I don't want you to be in an undue stress situation. You don't need to stress about your advertising. We can think about this. We can plan in advance together. It's going to save you more money. It's going to reduce your stress. It's going to reduce my stress. We're all going to get along better, and the marketing plan itself is going to look better and be more fully executed. So I think it's vividly important for you to recognize that trait number 4, understanding that advertisers buy when they're ready to buy, not when you need to sell. All right, superstar habit number 5, or trait number 5, if you will. Great salespeople know how to ask great questions. Again, great salespeople know how to ask great questions. Now, why is this important? It's important because every single time I work with a sales team, I ask, okay, what are your go-to questions? What are the questions that you always ask when you're on a sales call? This is what I typically hear. Mr. Advertiser, tell me about your 2014 or 2015 marketing plans. Everyone thinks it's a great question because it's open-ended, it's broad, you can learn a lot from it. Now, I'm not going to argue with you that that's a good or bad question. What I would rather, though, have you consider is this. Are you the only sales rep that's asking that question? Are you the only salesperson from a media company that's going to walk into that advertiser's office today and ask that specific question? The answer is no. It's very, very common. All right, what's another common question? If you wouldn't mind, tell me a little bit more about your business. Bad question, people. Honk. Bad question. The reason it's bad is because there's this little thing called the internet. Okay, so you should know a little bit about their business. And also, it's a common go-to question. All right, so let's think about this. What are some questions that we can ask that other media sales reps typically won't ask? Let me give you a couple good ones. One of my go-tos is, tell me, in regards to your competitors, who do you feel is really, your harshest competitor and really feel like he's really giving you a run for the money? I think that's a good one. Because then you can talk about competitive advantages, and it works on ego. Advertisers are typically ego-driven when it comes to their competitors. Another good question. If we could create the perfect ad for you, what would you want to have happen from that ad? What would you want to, do you need a certain number of clicks to your website, phone calls, visits to the store? What is the circumstance? So I think that's a good question. I want to challenge you to think about questions that other media sales reps aren't going to ask. When I'm out with the superstar sales reps, the questions that these reps ask are awesome. And they're questions that no other media salesperson is going to ask. It sets you apart. Do you feel like you can gauge the brain power or the intellectualness, ability, if you will, of a person by the questions they ask? Absolutely. It really is a window into somebody's soul or to their brain to see really where their head is at by the questions that they ask. These questions can truly help you stand apart from the rest of the crowd. So trait number 5 of 10 is great salespeople know how to ask great questions. All right, let's move on to trait number 6. So we're working on 6 of 10 habits of what you need to do to be the number 1 rep in your company, in your market, or in your industry. Number 6 is know how to sell using competitive angles. Trait number 6 is great superstar sales reps know how to sell using competitive angles. So let me explain this as simply as I can, and when you understand it, you will soar as a media salesperson. Typically, as a sales rep, you would look in a competitor's magazine to find new advertisers. Or, say you're in the TV business, you would watch a competing TV station, you would see someone running an ad, you would call on them to also run with your media or on your TV station or in your magazine or in your newspaper or whatever the circumstance is. Now, the reason that this typically doesn't work well is because you are always seen as being late to the party. Basically, it reminds me of, asking someone to prom that's already been asked, and it's kind of embarrassing, right? Does anybody remember that? Okay, so we don't want to go too far back in our memories, do we? Okay, because high school is a long time ago for some of us. So for me, I want you to remember that prom example so that you stop doing this, and instead, you take a new approach to competitive selling. So here's what I do, and what I encourage you to consider. Look in a competitor's magazine and find a potential advertiser. Let's just say the company is Acme Incorporated. Rather than call on Acme, I want you to look in your Rolodex, your database, or whatever, and I want you to find Acme's biggest competitor. Let's just say that they're ABC Incorporated, or whatever the circumstance is. And I want you to call on their competitor. Now, why would you call on their competitor, especially if their competitor is not advertising with anybody? The reason is because of what I like to call competitive chaos. You're able to use a competitive angle. You're calling ABC and you're saying, hey, I see that Acme is marketing really hard these days. They're currently not running with us. I think if you ran with us, it would give you a distinct competitive advantage over them. Now, a lot of you won't do this because you're fearful of pointing out that someone's competitor is advertising with your competitor. I've not found that to be the case or a problem. Instead, you've got to think about this. If you are calling on somebody just to get them to run with you, it's a pretty generic phone call or email or meeting. Instead, you're using competitive chaos. You're using competitive ego to drive the sale. Just imagine you're an advertiser and you get a call from a media sales rep that says, hey, I see you're advertising here. I'd love for you to come advertise with us. You're seen as sort of being late to the party. Instead, you call and say, hey, Mr. ABC, I noticed that your competitor, Acme, is really marketing hard. I've got a unique way. I feel that you could work with us to give you a very nice competitive advantage, potentially really, really do well and really kill them in the market. That is a better phone call. So superstar sales reps recognize that they need to come to their advertisers, not with a standard media buy, but with a competitive angle. And that really is trait number 6 of 10. All right, let's take a look at trait number 7 of 10 of superstar salespeople. Superstar salespeople know how to become a time management master, and you need to become a time management master. Now, what does that really mean? Well, think about this. If you recognize and follow, shadow, if you will, superstar successful people, typically they're very good at time management. Very rarely do I meet a successful business person that's calendar is a train wreck. Typically, most successful business people are masters of their calendar. Now, let's talk about good old Ryan Dorn for a second. Am I a master of my calendar? I am now, but I was really coached through that by a lot of good business coaches over time. One of the things they recognized is, Ryan, you can talk, you're a great guy, you've got good ideas, but you're horrible at time management. I believed them, I humbled myself, and I recognized that I needed to block out time for very, very important tasks. So that's exactly what I did. So what I do is I block out time every morning for prospecting. I block out time in the afternoon for prospecting. I block out time every day for retention. What I do is I begin, when I'm working with somebody, just like all of you that are watching this webinar, I begin by identifying what are the 4 or 5 very important tasks that you have to perform or do every day. And then we block out a time for those tasks on our calendar, and then those tasks recur every day. I was working with a wonderful salesperson in Tampa, Florida just a few weeks ago. And what I did is I said, listen, you're not being respectful of your calendar. So I had him create a Post-it note, and he put it right on his monitor, and it said, respect the calendar. And when he did, he's beginning to see some subtle changes in his sales life. So sales superstars are those that are number 1 in their company, are typically masters, and they become time management masters. All right, let's move on to tip number 8 of 10 if you're looking to be number 1 in your company. And tip number 8 is managing advertiser expectations. Managing advertiser expectations. Now, there's a saleswoman that I've worked with for many years, and I consider her to be a very, very good friend and a confidant. Her name is Mary, and Mary is a master at managing customer expectations. I see it in all of her prospect emails, on her sales calls, at trade shows, when she's retaining her customers. She's always detail-oriented and worried, if you will, about managing customer expectations. That's why she has an awesome renewal rate, because the advertisers have clearly understood what they're going to receive from her or her media company. Then she manages their expectations every single day. Then at the end, when it comes time for renewal, they are not as worried because they know they've received what they should have received. A lot of it is under-promising and over-delivering, to be honest. But very often, salespeople will go in with a beautiful, awesome, big story, and there's really no way that the magazine, newspaper, TV station, radio station could ever live up to that. And that's a real problem. So superstars, those that are number 1 in their companies, are awesome at managing customer expectations from the get-go. All right, let's take a look at superstar habit 9 of 10 if you're looking to really rock it and be number 1 in your company. Number 9 is understanding that teaching is actually selling. Teaching is actually selling. All right, I think you would agree with me that we have more advertising options now than ever before. I mean, how many people remember when people would actually call us to place an ad? I remember that. How many people actually remember when the fax machine used to kick out one piece of paper? Does anybody remember that? I do, okay? So it's really not that long ago, just for some of you that are younger, okay? It's not that long ago. For me, I understand that because advertising options continue to grow each and every day, advertisers cannot be expected to keep up. They just can't. So to that end, I have to understand that I'm more of a teacher, an educator, than I ever have been before. As a matter of fact, if I'm looking to hire new salespeople, I'm actually not looking for somebody that's terribly slick. I'm actually looking for someone that's a good conversationalist. I'm looking for someone that is able to be a really good teacher in everything that they do. I'm actually not looking for somebody that's even got a used car salesman sort of mentality at all. I'm looking for people that understand that teaching is core to understanding. And so I want to encourage people to really take that mindset and really take that mentality. Now, I'm not talking about talking down to people. I think that could work out very poorly for you. Instead, on a sales call, I will identify immediately where my advertiser is at. I might ask a question like this: Mr. Advertiser, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being you're a genius when it comes to marketing and 1 being you don't know anything, where are you at? So I can craft this conversation to really best meet your needs. I have found that to be a wonderful question to understand what level I need to be at in an effort to educate my advertisers. Remember, advertisers will always buy more from you if they accurately understand what it is that you're trying to sell to them. All right, so we've walked through 9 really good habits. Let's go to the final habit of 10. So you're looking to be number 1. You're looking to be the best you can be. What's the best habit out there? Well, I don't know if it's the best, but I know that it's infinitely important, and I observe it among superstar sales rep. And that is number 10, paint a picture of potential. Great sales reps understand they need to paint a picture of potential. All right, so let's talk about it. What does that mean? That means that we need to, as we've spoken about before, underpromise and overdeliver, but we need to help the advertiser understand what just might happen if they run an ad with us. The best way to paint a picture of potential is with a success story. Now, what is a good success story? A good success story to me is not about widgets being sold, meaning XYZ company ran an ad with me and sold 50 things. That's truly not what this is about. Instead, what I want you to consider is this. A success story is a customer that took a chance with you and then they expanded their business. That's a great success story. Somebody, an advertiser that's been running with you for an extended period of time. That's a great success story. An advertiser that has expanded locations since running advertising with you. I'm looking for people that have seen some type of business growth since advertising with us. Now remember, I don't want you to get stuck on widgets sold. They ran an ad and sold 50 houses. They ran an ad and sold 2 MRI machines. That's not what I'm talking about. That's too specific and may get you into a situation of liability that you don't want to be in. Instead, I'm looking for solid business success stories that will really, really make sense to my advertiser and help me paint a picture of potential. All right, so in traveling around the globe and working with sales reps, these are the 10 things that I have most often seen exhibited by superstar sales reps. I want you to look back through those 10 and figure out what's one of those traits or habits that I can really sink my teeth into, make it a part of your daily schedule, make it something that you can really sink your teeth into every day. Because remember, the day that you stop learning should really be the day that they're putting you in the ground. Because if you stop learning, you're going to stop growing. I'm Ryan Dorn from 360 Ad Sales Training and Strategy on behalf of my friends from Schwecke Media. Thanks so much for being a part of this booster program. Remember, if ad sales was easy, everybody'd be doing it, and they're not. So we're a unique group of people that are out there getting it done every day.